Everybody, welcome to, here we are, 6 days into 2025, and what a year it has already kicked off to be. A lot to talk about, and I have your favorite guest on today. John Howler's joining me. Thanks you, John, for joining me. This is going to be an outstanding program.
Hi, Tom. I'm already longing for the good old days of 2024.
That's scary because Kamala Harris is still on TV.
Well, speaking of her, I think we're ready to move forward with the program, unburdened by what has been.
Very good. Canada is about ready to be unburdened with what they have been burdened with. And I, just want to give a shout out to all of our friends and viewers up there in Canada. We have a lot of them, both John and I do. Canada's just, what a great place. Great people, awful prime minister, and it looks like he's gone. And the new guy's coming in. John, you sent me this video. I want to play it because this video, everybody, is really going to open up the rest of our program. But we're not only going to talk about what's going on right now, January 6th, first Monday of 2024. We're going to project into 2025 because it looks to be, wow. Okay, you ready, John?
Yeah, so we're going to go from Jihadi Fidel Justin to this guy. Who you're going to play
to this guy. What a difference.
Yeah.
Don Stewart calls him Justin Bieber Trudeau. All right, let's roll this video, you guys.
Yesterday you said that you endorsed Israel proactively defending itself by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, which is something that President Joe Biden does not endorse. Do you not feel like this could lead to a likelihood of an all-out conventional war between Iran and Israel? And do you not agree with Joe Biden and his assessment?
I think the idea of allowing a genocidal, theocratic, unstable dictatorship that is desperate to avoid being overthrown by its own people to develop nuclear weapons is about the most dangerous and irresponsible thing that the world could ever allow. And if Israel were to stop that genocidal, theocratic, unstable government from acquiring nuclear weapons, it would be a gift by the Jewish state to humanity.
Wow. What a difference on the world scene. That's a remarkable thing to say. He's probably got every anti-Israel and anti-Jew person just lit up after that speech too, John. But I look at that and think a couple of things stand out as remarkable to me. One of them is that the reporter's asking him, don't you care what Joe Biden thinks? I'm thinking, as a reporter, can't you finally move on from that? But the whole thing is just remarkable as we look at what's going on with Iran and Israel and Turkey.
Well, I would throw Syria in there, and I would throw Israel in there. There's such a geopolitical disruption in the world. It's like there are these tectonic plate shifts and earthquakes happening everywhere. So Trudeau has resigned. It looks like Pierre Poilievre, or whatever, however you say his name, the guy that we just played the clip of, is going to be the new prime minister of Canada. And I will say, I found what he said to be, whether you agree with him or not, what he spoke with was very unusual among politicians today. He spoke with absolute, complete clarity as to what he meant and what he thought. And I agree with it 100%. Tom, over the past day, I've been very troubled by a lot of the things that I've seen, and mainly the reaction of, I think the term that we need to start using is the woke right. So the Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who, we agree with them on a lot of conservative issues, but it comes down to geopolitics in Israel. We are 180 degrees opposite from these people, and I think what they're doing is very dangerous. For example, I know Candace Owens is planning on having a guy on named Michael Jones. She's going to drop a program here in the next few days. She says Michael Jones is a Holocaust denier. And Candace will do this little, oh, I'm just asking questions thing that she does. I just have trouble processing the things that I'm seeing. And so we sit here, we live in a world where Islamic terror and threats is a real thing. And people on the woke right, I get sent videos all the time by people. Oh, this is just something to make us fear the Islamists. They're not a threat. Iran is okay, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, where are these people getting this stuff? I mean, certainly I wouldn't consider it a biblical worldview by any stretch of the imagination. So I've just been inundated with this stuff over the past week, and it's very troubling. But, I'm sure you're seeing it too.
Well, it's just kind of remarkable in a way to see, John, that people are actually saying on what you call the woke right, I think that's a good term to start using, that are actually saying Islam is good. I mean, you start looking at these things and going, you guys just shouted out how Islam will kill anybody who supports LGBTQ. They'll kill anybody who doesn't agree with them. The women are oppressed. And now suddenly you're saying Islam is good because Islam is anti-Israel. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so I look at this and go, pretty unbelievable. Okay, when you had Francisco Gil White on your program,
Mm-hmm.
He
Right.
mentioned that at one time he was cultural anti-Semitic, and
Right.
we asked him, what is that? And I thought he did a great job of explaining it. He said he's not anymore, and he explained why it wasn't for the same reasons as you and I, why we support Israel. Ours was a biblical understanding. Francisco Gil White was different in his understanding, but he said he's not cultural anti-Semitic anymore. He's not anti-Semitic, but he said the majority of people are cultural anti-Semitic, and they go along with it. I talked with several people over the last few days, just in conversation, because of things that I said, that can't believe that I support Israel. And when I give them the biblical facts, they're puzzled by the Bible actually says that. And it's that they bought into this. So they watch Mike Adams, they watch Candace Owens, they watch these people on videos, and they buy into it. And the guy from Redacted, his program is huge.
He was somebody sent me a video of his last night. He's completely off the rails on Israel. He does not acknowledge that Iran or Islam is a problem. And here we sit, Tom, at the beginning of 2025 with a massive scandal unfolding in the UK. Have you heard about this? The government is about ready to collapse.
Yeah.
And it's ready to collapse for a couple of reasons. Labor has been anti-Israel, and the Reformed Party, I think it's Nigel Farage's party, if they held the election today, Farage's party would probably win, and he would be prime minister.
Wow.
But do you know what Labor is now proposing to do in the UK? Now listen, I'm not a racist, okay? I'm a realist. I can see what's happening. I was in the UK 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I did a conference. And some people drove us down to London. I may have shared this with you before. And these are good guys. I mean, they have ministries in India and all these. I mean, they're phenomenal people. But they kind of jokingly said, we're now in London, and it's time to play our favorite game. Can you spot a real Englishman? So we stayed 4 blocks from Marble Arch, Speaker's Corner. Our Marriott Hotel, we had 50 channels available on the cable. 10 or 11 of them were Arabic. This is in the heart of London, 4 blocks from Hyde Park and Speaker's Corner, the great free speech thing. And right across Hyde Park is Buckingham Palace, where at the time the Queen lived. now where King Charles lives. Tom, I'm telling you that I've been all over Judea, Samaria, what's also called the West Bank. I saw more hijabs in the area around my hotel in London than I did in all of the time I traveled around Israel. In London.
I believe it, John. So I'm looking at things that are going on in the UK. Just saw a video this morning of this massive march. It was mainly women in the full hijab, completely covered, looking like they're Saudi.
One of the streets I walked on in London.
Okay, this is happening.
The street.
Okay, in Canada, was it Mississauga, Canada?
Yeah,
where,
it's a Toronto suburb.
Okay, they're Islamic extremist group hosting a caliphate conference there. I got an email from one of our viewers. She views both of our programs. She goes, "That's where I grew up." She's she's Canadian, and she said, "That's where I grew up." This is happening in Canada. Trudeau's going out. I hear that Canada's economy is in deep, deep trouble, and that's one of the reasons why Trudeau is looking at things like I've got to run and hide. And then also, I'm looking at this right now. The UK is on brink of economic collapse, and you look at the insane policies and what they are allowing. So, and we have to be careful on this again. Also, John, I have all kinds of stories that I have in my file regarding just the censorship in the UK over the last 48 hours and what's going on. And it's not against Islamists. It's against people who are speaking out and bringing these things to the attention of the masses.
And now what's coming out are reports about the grooming gangs in the UK that were covered up mainly by the government because, well, we don't want to prosecute those people because it might create a certain kind of phobia that they're afraid of. So they let these people go. The numbers that they're talking about, Tom, are shocking. 250,000 to 1 million young girls over the last 25 years have been sexually abused.
Wow.
And one of the main social services guy who was investigating this and covered it up is now the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer. So, look, God tells us that there's nothing done in secret that won't be revealed. So you sit here and you look, you see an anti-Israel, pro-jihadi guy like Justin Trudeau. One of his ministers resigned a few weeks ago, that goofy finance minister that he has. And his government is now failing. He's resigned today, just a little bit before we started. We're good friends with Bill Koenig, and Bill's right. You mess with Israel, you're messing with something you do not understand. And what I do not understand, I don't know who I was seeing. It might have been Rick Ross for years. He's ranting on Benjamin Netanyahu, the biggest killer in the world, and they want to create a greater Israel and all this stuff. And boy, Israel, Syria's gone. That's a bad thing for the world. Have you seen the videos coming out of Syria, the prisons, the death camps, the unmarked graves where 200,000 bodies are buried? And there's not a protest at all at Harvard or Yale or UCLA or UC San Diego or Cal Irvine or whatever. But let Israel defend itself when it's attacked, brutally invaded. And that's the problem. Listen, we've talked about this for a long time.
Okay, so you and I have...
We knew it was coming, and here it is.
Yeah, well, you and I we've pointed out what Assad was doing to his own population. If a Palestinian attempted to relocate in Syria, he'd have him killed. But you wouldn't hear anything. And we reported the hundreds of thousands of people that he was killing. And he's not the only one. This stuff is still going on with all of these regimes. And yet Israel is the bad guy, which obviously there's a spiritual dynamic to this that the woke right isn't aware of because they're not spiritually awake. That's what's going on there.
Well, I saw an interview from a couple of months ago with the great Dr. Mordecai, probably the leading Israeli expert on Islam and Islamic culture. And he said, we get blamed for all of this, but Syria's been fighting for decades. Egypt has had civil wars. Libya had a civil war. In Sudan, they've been at each other for 100 years. 1 million people died, including hundreds of thousands of young children. I mean children under the age of 12, in the war between Iran and Iraq back in the 1980s. And he goes, Israel wasn't involved in any of those. Why are we getting blamed for everything? And it's a biblical thing that's happening. And he was 100% correct. So we're sitting at I don't think we're really grasping what's happened over the last 4 months in the Middle East.
Okay, so I want to shift attention to Turkey. So Canada, this is going to be really interesting. For all of our viewers in Canada, hey, let us know what your thoughts are because you got to live it. You got your hand on the pulse. David Fiorazo, he's Canadian too, and his wife's whole family is up in Canada.
Right.
We should get him on. And then also, okay, so we see what Assad has done. We see some of these weakened regimes. Turkey has made it very clear we're the new kid on the block. Israel is saying, hey, Turkey's positioning themselves to be the new Iran in the Mideast, which is right on their border. You look at this and you go, wow. I mean, and it was Trump who also said, hey, talked about how powerful the military is of Turkey. And so just looking at this is intriguing to say the least.
So once you put up that poster that I sent you, I think I sent it to Matthew.
Let's see. When did you send it?
It's in the folder that I sent.
Oh.
It was about the protest or the demonstration that they had on January 1st.
That one?
In Istanbul.
Oh, this one, right. This one?
I'm not seeing it, but I can talk about it.
Okay. It's the picture that you
there
sent
it is.
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bold white, and I won't, my Turkish is worse than my English, so, but not by much. That phrase there means a sun rises. So this was a protest that was held at the behest. It was led by the son of Erdogan, Bilal Erdogan, in Istanbul on Monday. Hundreds of thousands of people showed up at the Galata Bridge and supported Palestine. So you see the sun there. The sun is covered by the Turkish flag and the Palestinian flag. But the phrase at the top is very important because this shows what Erdogan is doing. Now, 2 weeks ago, Erdogan did a talk at his party's Congress. They're in a political election cycle there, so he's doing a lot of speeches. And Erdogan he's 2 days younger than I am, so I've kind of followed him for a long time. And during his talk, the crowd started chanting, and I quote, "Chief, take us to Jerusalem. Chief, take us to Jerusalem." And let them finish, and then he said, "Victory comes to the patient." Erdogan has been working on this for over 20 years to get to this point. He's the one who funded the rebel groups in Syria. He's trying to get rid of the Kurds in Syria, and he's trying to expand. He wants to recreate the caliphate. And in that poster, there were 3 objects. There was, on the left, there was Hagia Sophia. There was a tower in the middle that was one of the minarets at the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. And on the right, you saw the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And then above it, it said, the translation was, "Yesterday, Hagia Sophia. that's representative in the Turkish mind of all of Christendom. They took over. The Hagia Sophia is the largest church ever built in the history of Christianity. It sits in Istanbul. They took it over at the fall of the eastern half of the Roman Empire.
Let's pull up the picture again while John talks through it. Okay.
So you see the outline of the Hagia Sophia there on the left with the minarets. And back in 2020, Erdogan held a ceremony. Now, when Ataturk created the sort of secular state of Turkey back in 1924, 100 years ago, he turned that mosque. They had taken it over, Suleiman the Magnificent, when all that stuff was going on, when the Ottoman Empire was coming into being. They took over the church, turned it into a mosque, but Ataturk 100 years ago turned it into a museum. 4 years ago, Erdogan had a big ceremony, and he turned that mosque, to the Turkish mind, the symbol of Christianity. He turned it into a mosque, and he titled it The Resurrection of Hagia Sophia. So the poster, the march, what was behind the thinking behind the march was, yesterday, Hagia Sophia, we got the Temple Mount. In the center, it says, today, Umayyad, today, Damascus. Yeah. And the Damascus was the biggest, most important mosque in the Umayyad Empire that ruled from Persia, now modern day Iran, all the way into Spain to southern France for hundreds of years. A huge Islamic empire. Their most important mosque was the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. And where did al-Jilani, the new leader of Syria, go immediately when he got to Damascus? He went to the Umayyad Mosque because it's symbolic. We've taken over the most important mosque of the Shias from that empire. Yesterday, Christianity. Today, the Shia. And then on the right, the Dome of the Rock. Tomorrow, Al-Aqsa. We're going to get the Temple Mount, Jerusalem, and the Jews. Because, they call the whole thing Al-Aqsa, even though the Al-Aqsa Mosque is at the southern end of the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
But they always symbolize it they call the whole Temple Mount that.
Hence, you see the gold.
Haram al-Sharif, now it's called Al-Aqsa.
I find it interesting. That gold dome has got to be the most recognizable building on the whole planet. It's like
on every dead Hezbollah fighter, when they were still able to put up memorial pages, they had the Dome of the Rock. And every one of those martyr pages, including the banner they had at the Al-Manar website for Nasrallah for a while, he was martyred on the road to Jerusalem. That's what this is all about. And so when these jihadists are taking over Syria, don't believe a thing they say, because the ultimate goal is Jerusalem.
So they made it very clear before we kind of all broke for Christmas. They made it very clear that they were going for the Jews and they were going for Jerusalem, and nobody would report on it. Just a few of us would, and that was it.
Right. So I dug back into my archives, Tom, and I should have sent you the other picture. People have watched me up this, they've seen it 50 times. So you remember there was a president back in December of 2017. His name was Donald Trump. So I think I've heard his name in the news recently. I think they're counting his electoral votes today. And but he decided, December 6th or 7th of 2017, he said, I'm moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Erdogan went ballistic. Immediately, one of his main mouthpiece newspapers is a newspaper called Yeni Safak, S-A-F-A-K. And in Yeni Safak, every day it was about Al-Quds. We have to protect Al-Quds. Al-Quds, that's Jerusalem. He convened a meeting of the 57 member states of the Organization of Islamic Countries in Istanbul, and it was all about Jerusalem. We've got to protect Jerusalem. We've got to get back Jerusalem. And during the course of that next week, he published in Yeni Safak the best Ezekiel 38 39 map I've ever seen. I think we had Andy Woods on the other day, and he does maps, and I do maps, and Bill Salas does maps. The best Ezekiel 38-39 map I've ever seen is the one that Erdogan published back in 2017, showing tanks, missiles, aircraft, all superimposed on a sea of green countries going against the little tiny red Israel in the center. So, I mean, we all want to say, I see all these people, Ezekiel 38-39, it's spiritual. It happens at the end of the millennium. It's not going to happen now. And all these prophecies, all this stuff has been fulfilled. We don't need to worry about it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then don't pay attention. That's your choice. But I'm just telling you, Tom. So the best Ezekiel 38-39 map, Erdogan had just the year before undergone a coup attempt. It was put down with the help from Putin and Russia. But he also formed a private security force at that time. My friend Jonathan Spire has written articles about it. It's called Sadat, S-A-D-A-T. And it was modeled after, I think, I'm still trying to get a hold of Jonathan to check with him. I'm pretty sure it was modeled after the Russian Wagner Group, private security firm. And is that way they can interfere in countries that they have plausible deniability. So where did he send 5,000 Sadat people? He sent them to Libya. He's now making massive inroads into Somalia to control the shipping lanes of the Red Sea. He's supporting Somalia in this war. They're having a war with Ethiopia right now. So he's trying to control that. He's in Libya. He's also been involved in Sudan. I mean, these are all, these are the countries, Kush, Put, that we hear talked about in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And Erdogan's involved in it. But it's interesting, the guy who was head of the Sadat was Erdogan's most trusted military advisor. And in 2018 or 19, a paper called Nordic Monitor quoted him. And what did he say in that speech? That what we are doing here is we are preparing the way for the coming of the Mahdi. That was Erdogan. That's a Sunni guy, a Muslim Brotherhood guy. So Erdogan's been involved. So back in July, Erdogan threatened Israel. This was after Israel had done that huge raid that they've just declassified into Syria. The newspaper, one of the newspapers in Israel Hayom, last week said this is as big as Entebbe, what happened back in July. They've just released everything. They went into that manufacturing facility in about 30 miles inland from Tartus, right there near the Russian military and all this other stuff bases. This massive operation. I mean, the stuff that's happened in the last 4 months, Tom, you could do a whole cable channel of shows about what Israel's been able to do in the last 4 months. Well, and the problem is a lot of people would say, no, there's no way that happened. That's just, I don't believe it. But it's our news every day we could sit here for an hour and just tick off the things that Israel's done in the last 4 months.
We could. What I find remarkable about Israel is they just keep winning. And by the way, not just Turkey with Sudan and Libya. Did you see what Putin's doing?
Yeah, he was moving his military equipment
to both of those areas. I mean, the whole thing. So as people think Russia's moving out of the area, they're not. People are all over the news report. Russia's completely leaving everything. They're not.
Let me give you one little factoid, because I think I heard you and James talking about it last week about Magog, Central Asia, the Stan republics. Do you know back in October they put in new regulations for textbooks in Turkey that the Central Asian Stan republics would now be referred to as Turkestan?
This is fascinating with Erdogan and even what you said about his Ezekiel 38 map. now calling
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's just also fascinating what he said about patience, and what we have said repeatedly. The target is Jerusalem,
Right.
and we know that biblically. So biblically, you can look at these things. I also find it interesting, John. You said, "Hey, people can choose to say this is not prophecy. This is symbolic. These things aren't going to happen." Well, why on earth does God give us so much of the Bible as if it's just poetry, as if it's, as the book of Revelation, something that God just gives the people to just confuse them and say it doesn't really matter? I just wanted to mess with your heads. Is that the kind of God we have? But that's the way a lot of pastors treat this.
Yeah, there was a pastor, I won't mention his name because I think he's despicable, talking about, this is all being orchestrated by the Jews.
Oh, gosh, I hear
This
that.
American pastor, I think it probably is. And I won't say it because I don't want people to go look at his channel and get misled. It's been an amazing thing to watch. So people are messing with Israel. Keir Starmer, his government's failing. And they lose the ability to figure out what's really going on. But I will admit, I'm concerned about what's going to happen in America. I'm sure you saw the interview that Sean Ryan did with Sarah Adams, talking about at least 1,000 Islamic terrorists. And so I mentioned this yesterday in my update. I think people need to be situationally aware when you go out. I mean, if you're going to the inauguration, that's fine, but be aware of your surroundings, because Sarah made the point that what we don't really understand about these people that do these suicide attacks is they will fight to the death. And she used the example of the Al-Qaeda attack in Mumbai, India, about 50, I can't believe it's been 15 years ago. They killed about 175, 180 people, injured about 400. And she said they'll fight to death. So I told people, if you're involved in this, you see something happen, and the guy's laying there, looks injured, don't help him. You have a responsibility to your family. Let the first responders take care of it, because he might have a suicide vest on.
Yeah. That's the world that we live in. So,
That's right.
And I saw that. And also, the FBI and CIA wants to assure us that they've got it all under control and that we can trust them of all things. I'm like,
yeah,
really?
I mean, look, I think there are people there that are actually trying to help us on some occasions.
Sure, there are some. Of course, there are some.
It's hard. And the interesting thing is that whenever something happens now, there's like 5 alternative theories about what it means and who's doing this and all this other stuff. And I think part of it, whoever's running this, maybe they're running both sides of this or all the different sides of this. I see a lot of people, Christians, on Facebook and Twitter and now posting, and they're saying, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is it's designed to completely undermine our foundations. And then it translates over to the foundations of faith.
Totally agree.
And then we have a big problem.
I believe that is intentional to cause us to wonder what to even believe. Hence, we have to stay with God's word, because it's the only thing that's not going to mislead us. And I want to caution everybody. I'm going to ask you in a minute about Trump and Israel. Going to go there in just a second. But before that, I want to caution everybody. Listen, I believe the prophecy world has been infiltrated by people who intentionally give enough truth to intrigue people, get a hold of their mind, and drag them into rabbit holes and all of these things that take us away from the truth, and to cause confusion and cause doubt, and to start going off and accusing other people of stuff. I'm going to tell you to be very careful, because I believe that's only going to get worse in 2025. And I think it's already happened. I'll leave it at that. Also, John, before we get into Trump and where you think 2025 is going to go, on Wednesday evening, you have a live, I get to MC it again, I'm guessing. You're going to be hosting it on your channel. Your live roundtable, it's going to be Britt Gillette again, Patrick Wood, yourself.
Scott Townsend.
And Scott Townsend. And then me. And so it'll be 4 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m.
7 p.m. Eastern.
Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. I guess if you just say 7 p.m. Eastern, that'd be easiest for everybody. So 7 p.m. Eastern, everybody. So you're going to want to check that out. It'll be really good. Those things are going well. We showed the one that we did last month. The other last week is done well. Okay. With that, John, well, anything you want to say about that? Then we'll go to the final question.
No, well, there's a lot of things going on there. In fact, I'm sort of sitting here trying to sort through the developments in the technology, AI space over the past few months, and I'm telling you, it's absolutely shocking what's going on. The speed with which everything is developing. I mean, things, quantum computing starting to come into the fore. I mentioned Turkey earlier. Turkey has probably some of the best drones in the world.
Lots to talk about with drones. So this will be the right crew for me to ask the question, what about those drones? And it's going to be an exciting event that's this Wednesday evening. So it's going to be really cool. So make sure you tune in everybody. That okay, John, Trump, assuming he makes it to January 20th, let's pretend that we don't have these massive 1,000 ISIS trained terrorists doing bombs all over the place between now and then. Let's say Trump gets inaugurated. What do you see he's going to do in the Mideast? There's a lot of talk that he's going to just make Israel stop fighting, and there's other talks that no, he's going to support Israel to finish the job. Where do you see things going?
I think that I'm going to take him at his word. He repeated, I believe, just yesterday or over the weekend, that Hamas, you have some of our people. If they are not free by January 20th, there will be hell to pay. And I believe that he will do something about that. I think he will support Israel. Anthony Blinken's given he gave the most ridiculous interview. It was embarrassing what he gave to the New York Times just a couple days ago. Reported on in the New York Times over the weekend. The way we've interfered with Israel, not let them finish the job, not let them finish their negotiations for the release of hostages and that type of thing is just egregious. I think you're going to see some things happen over the next 2 weeks before Trump is sworn in 2 weeks from today. First of all, you're going to see Trump sentenced on the New York case. That's done by design. Probably not going to get jail time according to the judge, but it's done for symbolism. You're going to see Biden just signed an executive order prohibiting drilling in the Atlantic and Pacific, or oil and gas exploration. Trump said this morning, I'm going to undo that one within minutes of being sworn in. Today is January 6th, which is the anniversary of an event in American history. I think Trump will do something about January 6th that will be fairly dramatic. And you're going to see heads explode all over D.C. when he does that. But, Trump is the ultimate lame duck now. He could not run for office again. He doesn't have to make political points
right.
to make a political thing. So, look, Trump's going to do things that I don't like. So Trump is a transactional guy. I'm going to be transactional with Trump. I'm going to be grateful for the things that he might do to protect children from this crazy woke education, trans agenda, and all this other stuff that they've been subjected to over the past years. That's a fight. The fight on, whether he's strong on abortion or not, he did put in place judges that overturned Roe versus Wade, but that's just the beginning of a very long fight. So I think there will be things there are things that are good. There are going to be things we don't like. But for example, there's things that Elon Musk does that I like. He's pushing on the UK government on this grooming gangs thing. He is just hammering them. And, he's become a supporter of Tommy Robinson, who's in solitary confinement now because he's there for contempt for speaking out against it. But the people who did it are walking around free. It's insane. So we're going to see a lot of that. I don't know. I suspect that we have potential problems here in the United States. Russia keeps threatening us with nuclear warfare all the time. Iran's going to push on nuclear to finish their nuclear program. I think they're being helped by Russia and North Korea on that. Don't know how quickly they'll get that in place. But so what are we going to do? I mean, look, I think that's a threat to us. Those missiles can go a long way. And it's not just a threat against Israel. It's a threat against the little Satan and the big Satan from their perspective. So what are we going to do? I think something's going to be done with regard to the Iranian nuclear program in the near future.
Yeah,
you know,
I do
a
too.
lot of people think it's going to happen in the next 2 weeks before Trump is sworn in. I'm not convinced of that, but this is one of those things. You know, Netanyahu has staked his whole political career on not allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and now the rubber's hitting the road, so to speak.
I would think that Israel, Netanyahu would wait until Trump would become president, because I would think that Trump will have his back on whichever direction that goes. But he may feel that Trump will tie his hands and not let him take that out. But don't know that. But I'll throw this in there. I think that Mike Huckabee is one of the best things that's happened to Trump, because I think Trump's going to go forward, want to implement the Abraham Accords to the fullest extent he possibly can. He's only got 4 years to accomplish whatever he can. I don't think Huckabee's going to go along with that. I think Huckabee's got some problems, because Huckabee knows Bible prophecy, and he understands there's a real problem if you divide the land of Israel. And I personally think that Huckabee's conscience will bother him more than the pressure from Trump. And so Trump might actually have a little bit of a challenge with Huckabee in that position, with certain things that Trump might want to do with Israel.
I don't know if Governor Huckabee is long for the administration, depending on how it goes. I mean, because, you got the whole Abraham Accords pressure. You got that going on. You got Mohammed bin Salman. By the way, Tom, I was watching a video the other day of the construction that's still going on Neom, the line. It's unbelievable. 25% of the world's logistics are tied up with Saudi Arabia now.
25%? Okay, yeah. John, here's the deal.
That's crazy.
Okay, so we're out of time. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to come back on. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as soon as we're done with this. And I want to talk about that. Just that thing with MBS. I want to focus in on this issue with the Abraham Accords, MBS, what he's doing with the line. Did you know I had Avi Lipkin on about 4 or 5 weeks ago?
I saw that. Okay,
and he said he would not be surprised if both MBS is assassinated and what's his name from Jordan, Hussein.
Hussein, King Abdullah II.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I'd like to pick up with these thoughts, if you don't mind. I should have you on with Avi Lipkin sometime. That'd be
great.
That would be cool. I'll see.
We ought to get like Mordecai Kedar too. So and we're going to see just one quick thing. We're going to see something happen at the UN over the next 2 weeks with regard to Israel. I'm almost certain of that, and it won't be positive.
Oh, Guterres, what did he say? It was yesterday about Israel. Oh man, I wish I had it in my head right now. I'm thinking this guy is just so anti-Jew and anti-Israel. It's unbelievable. Just absolutely a wicked man.
But we knew that we would face these things, see these things in the end times.
Okay, I tell you,
and look, it's here. It's here.
So I'll try and set that up with Avi Lipkin. I hope he has good internet next time. You work with Mordecai Kedar, and I think that would be great. Man, that would be one rocking and rolling program.
That would be great.
Okay, thanks for joining me, John.
Thanks, Tom.
It's great to be back in the new year until Jesus comes. We'll press forward, and it's hard to believe we'll be saying the good old days of 2024 behind us, because all I can picture is Kamala Harris. That sounds horrible, but thank you, John, and stay warm. Go golfing.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Okay, see ya.